Toss a coin. By F. E. Wallenbecker. 1. Richard waited behind the stables and occasionally looked around the corner. He looked up, the full moon directly overhead told him he'd been there more than an hour. Sarai was late, she was never late. He was just about to leave when a breeze brought him the scent of her perfume. Richard turned around and there she stood, wearing a long white nightgown that fell to her bare feet, now damp from the evening dew upon the grass. Her auburn hair fell to her shoulders and her brown eyes sparkled while her teeth trapped her bottom lip in a mischievous smile. She locked her fingers behind his neck and got on her toes to press her lips to his. "Did I worry you?" "Yes, I thought something happened." Sarai giggled and kissed him again. "I said I would meet you under the moon. You said you had news for me." "I've done it." "You've done what?" "I've saved 100 pieces of silver. I'm going to play your father's little game." The game Richard spoke of was a pair of coin tosses to win Sarai's hand. The first was to bet something irreplaceable against an amount of gold of far greater monetary value. One man made it to the second toss but backed out with his winnings. The spoils of one bet was sleeping in the stable. "Richard," Sarai whispered, "with that money, we could run away. He'd kill me for sure then drag you back. I'll play his game and win." 2. Early the next morning, Richard woke and gave a prayer that he would win his toss before getting dressed and walking to the front door on Santiago's manor. He knocked and waited for the butler, an elderly man who had the knack of looking down on people taller than himself. When the door opened, Richard jingled his sack of silver. "I'm here to marry Sarai." The old man eyed the sack with a sardonic smile. "You'll be lucky to leave with your head." Richard followed the butler past tapestries, paintings and sculptures, but Richard kept his eyes on the back of the old man's head. They stopped before a pair of heavy, intricately carved wooden doors. The butler stepped aside. "Your destiny awaits." Richard pushed through the doors and followed the narrow red carpet to a desk where sat a man with wide shoulders, a shiny bald head and a short, white beard. Santiago fixed Richard with ethereal blue eyes. "Richard, is all well in my stable?" The weight of that gaze robbed Richard of his earlier pomp. He planned on tossing the silver on his future father-in-law's desk, but settled for placing it on the desk like an offering upon an altar. Santiago jingled the sack with a look of pure greed. "How much is in here?" 100 pieces of silver." "You saved this much in only 1 year? I'm impressed." "I love your daughter." The merchant pulled a coin from his pocket. "Let's hope fate sides with you." 3. Fate had not sided with Richard. The sadistic butler held the door open as he approached. "At least you still have your head." What was Sarai going to think? He had spent a year working harder than he had in his life to earn all that silver. Could he do it again? He would have to. He went back to the stables, he had his job to do. The first stall he had to muck out belonged to Dusk, a massive reddish-brown warhorse who belonged to Captain Leonidas until he decided to toss a coin with Santiago. Richard stroked the horse's nose and wondered who had it worse, him or the captain. The horse was worth at least 3 times what he lost, then again, 100 silver coins would have likely been a pittance for the captain. That settled it. If Leonidas could part with such a magnificent beast he could risk another year of his life. Richard continued tending the stables by day and refurbishing the discarded items the wealthy decided to replace. While such items were beneath the quality, they delighted the wives of the blacksmiths, butchers and bakers. Despite his lack of sleep, he never missed a weekly rendezvous with Sarai. Her touch and kisses rejuvenated him better than sleep. If not for those, Richard doubted he would have lasted a month, much less 2 years. He approached Santiago's manor for what he prayed to be the last time. He ignored the butler's sneer as he walked alone to the merchant's office door, entered and laid a second sack upon the desk. Santiago pulled a coin from his desk, flipped it and slapped it up on the desk. Heads. The merchant pulled 2 sacks from his desk, Richard's original wager and another, with the silver's equal weight in gold. "Will you risk all you have against my daughter's hand?" 4. Santiago led Richard to the courtyard where a stump sat with chains fastened to either side. Upon the stump, a powerfully built man sat while he sharpened a sword with the edge on the inside of the curve. Richard's steps faltered. "What is this?" Santiago drew his coin from his pocket. "When I said all you have, I meant everything." "Where's Sarai?" "This is between you and me." The merchant tossed the coin in the air and snatched it in the split second before it began its descent. "Why?" "I've amassed a great fortune. An enterprising young man such as yourself might see all the work you've done as an investment." Richard stood and stared at this man who he could tell was quite serious. Santiago continued, "A greedy man might gamble 2 or even 3 fortunes to get what I have and count betting my daughter an extra boon. But what manner of madness short of ardent passion would compel a man to bet his head against the hand of a woman?" Richard thought about Sarai's kisses and her touch. Life without them would be a purgatory, a kind of living death. He laid his head upon the stump and watched Santiago toss the coin and catch it mid-flight. Santiago smiled down at Richard. "You pass." Richard straightened and felt a familiar pair of arms hug him from behind with a squeal of delight. "See, father, I told you he loved me." Richard sat on his heels and stared at Santiago, oblivious to the kisses that were being lavished upon him. This was all a game? Santiago pulled 2 coins from his pocket and tossed them to Richard, who caught them one at a time. He turned them over. One was double-headed and the other double-tailed. The merchant grinned at him. "You'll make a fine addition to this family." "No sir, I don't think I will. You see, you and Sarai know how far I'm willing to go for her, but I have no idea how far she'll go for me." To be continued in The Merchant's Dowry. Thank you for listening to Toss a Coin, by F. E. Wallenbecker. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share and subscribe. If you would like to show your appreciation in a more monetary fashion, please spend $1 and buy a book. You can find them on Kindle, Apple and Nook.